Hello everybody and welcome back to Rebellious Menstruation. This is part 2 of cultural differences with kind of minimalism and sustainability. However, this time we're actually looking at the menstrual cycle itself. One of the biggest issues in the disposable product industry is these applicator tampons here. And we'll just open this up. So not only do you have this kind of plastic wrapper, that's the problem, but you then have this plastic disposable applicator on the outside. So these applicators specifically clog up sewage systems, litter beaches, kill animals, and are endemic to menstrual cycle waste. However, these are not particularly a very big issue in Australia, as historically Australians will use these types of tampons. So this one here is actually a super and this one here is a regular, I believe. So I've in fact never used one of these on my cycle. I have only ever used tampons that without applicators. So basically you insert them via the use of your fingers. You'll find that culturally Australians don't use applicator tampons. In fact, they used not to be really sold at all. And kind of there are ebbs and flows. There was a period, I think in the 90s, where they were really kind of pushing it in teen magazines, but it just never really took off. And even recently, in the two local stores that I go through to have, neither one of them have applicator tampons in them, and one's a bit like a big chain store. Not that I'm particularly in the menstrual aisle often because I don't need to be, but I did actually check for this video earlier on this week, and there weren't any at all applicator boxes. Reports show that 60% of UK women and 88% of US women that are tampon users prefer applicator tampons. However, in continental Europe and Australia, applicator tampons are a no-go. They are viewed as unable to be placed by the tampon correctly. They are viewed as uncomfortable, unnecessarily large, which really defeats the purpose of having a clutch on a night out. They are full of useless plastic and packaging and are liable to bend or break if left in your bag. Australians would consider digital tampons as convenient, easy to place and useful, and in providing tactile feedback straight away. Americans, however, consider these types of tampons disgusting, finding the idea of placing your fingers inside of yourself disgusting, which of course is laughable unless you've never touched yourself in any version or way of contact. Other reasons I've seen include not wanting to get bloody fingers, which kind of actually makes me laugh and kind of would indicate that you've never used this type of tampon before, because after you've kind of put the first one in, the next one that you actually, you take this one out and put the next one in, I've never got blood on my fingers after, I've had a tampon in. So I don't know where you would get that idea, but again, these are the type of tampons that I'm used to, and that's, if you cannot change your tampon, you shouldn't be getting blood on your fingers. Australians know this because we are raised not to be disgusted by changing your tampon when you have these types of tampons. This is kind of all exactly my point. Our views on applicator versus non-applicator tampons and our use of applicator tampons and non-applicator tampons is completely and utterly cultural. Shara Vostral writes in Under Wraps, A History of Menstrual Hygiene Technology, that Earl Haas devised cardboard applicators in 1931 to maintain the moral concerns regarding women touching their vulvas. Because women historically because for women, historically vulvas are seen as gross and scary. For Australians, digital tampons involve less plastic, less waste, and provide an immediate sensory feedback and no blind guessing as to where it is being placed. It provides control, precision, and no, you don't get blood on your fingers necessarily. You may the first tampon you use, but if the tampon is doing its job properly, the removal and reinsertion is not a bloody mess. No woman should be uncomfortable or ashamed of touching their vagina or their vulva, touching it or being around the area and being able to touch it, irrelevant of the time of month. The environmental cost of this shame is such a phenomenal thing. But the point of this video is to highlight exactly what I've been saying, is that the cultural viewpoint that I come from is from somebody who has always been raised using this. So I see this type of thing as a really, really awful thing to be using. But American women who you speak to would never consider not using this. And so that is definitively such a cultural difference. So the cultural differences is what is this is like a fundamental hygiene item for a lot of women, and how different cultures approach design, shame, and environmental costs. There is also, say, like bidets, a plumbing feature that is very common in France, Italy, Japan, and several other countries. These can often be seen as far more hygienic than toilet paper, as they rinse, clean, and in some units I've seen in Japan, also essentially kind of blow dry, meaning that they can also be far more environmentally friendly, and are considered far more environmentally friendly because you are not using toilet paper, which is obviously cutting down trees. But of course, these are actually these are definitively not popular. Bidets are definitively not popular in either the United States, United Kingdom, or Northern Australia. While we recognise that period poverty is an issue of access, affordability, and education, we often fail to realise how culture influences our choices, and influences our choices even in the bathroom with the use of such things as toilet paper and bidets. So we battle the stigma, shame, and how impactful the cultural choices that we do actually make and that we are involved in have an impact on the environment. Like tampons themselves, which are still wasteful, and these are obviously, as you can still see, still covered in plastic. Is that adding plastic applicators to this makes the whole situation far, far worse. While there have been definitely inroads with menstrual cups and cloth pads, and also in developments there is a reusable applicator, so you can get like a reusable applicator by a company called Dame, which actually makes a reusable applicator. Still, this promotes the idea of using single-use disposable products, and sometimes the focus on the problem of, say, this applicator by making a product to replace that is actually more reflective of a cultural impact to hold on to the tampon rather than a cultural shift towards reusable menstrual products. FYI, that is not actually a dig at Dame. The fact that they've come out with a product that actually, 88% of US women and 67%, wasn't it, of UK women, like if all of them used reusable applicator like Dame, it would be far better, even though they would still be creating the waste of the tampon. So sometimes we need to focus on changing our cultural outlook, and we need to focus on other voices in this market so that we can see a wider frame of what we can and cannot do. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your morning, afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the day. I will link the last video, the part 1 of this series, which should be coming up on your screen, plus a link to the sustainability playlist, as well as a subscribe button. So outside of that, I will see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.